problem. And as we go down the installation procedure, we'll determine whether we're going to need to do that or not. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for some, is once we've installed the system, it takes a couple of weeks for us to figure out if you're having a problem with your O2 sensor or not. And that's why we get the initial baseline. So we'll take a baseline with one of these type of systems, and like I said, you can pick them up just about anywhere. And we will find out where your long-term fuel trim is at. And those numbers need to be as close to 0 as we can get them. And normally, if they're 10% or less on the long-term fuel trim, then we know that your car is running lean. And it's especially good if you're in the negative numbers. So if you're like -2 or -3 on your long-term fuel trim, then your car is running really lean. And once we put the system in, that's what we're hoping we'll see. So after we've installed the system, we'll hook it back up again, let it run to a warm operating temperature, and get another reading. Now, as Rick said earlier when we were talking, is that your computer is always analyzing the system, trying to learn what's going on and make adjustments. And that is really the reason why we need a couple of weeks. We need you to run it through a few tanks of gas, a tank or two of gas, and see how the system is doing with that until we can really determine if you're going to have problems with your O2 sensor and we need to take some other steps. Are there any questions so far or comments?
Well, I have one that's really a good point, is when you put the mixture, the water, into your apparatus to make the hydrogen, one thing that I've found is a lot of people fail to check it all the time. And as the water is depleted and making the hydrogen and the level of the water in the bottle comes down, the positive rod that is inside, and if we can show this, it would be very good.
There's a float
learning.
here, right?
Yeah. If we have water that, for example, is at this point is where we're trying to keep it all the time, as it depletes down, you will get less and less hydrogen because of mass on the rod and the amount of water's in there. So,
here. All right.
So we have to think all the time, check this, keep the water level high so we can always get the maximum hydrogen being made all the time. Plus, as we go down, you'll get some buildups on the rod and so forth of the steam that's coming up. They'll start building up here. We want to keep it submerged and get 100% hydrogen made all the time. So we have to keep in mind of always checking it as well.
That's an excellent point. And you know, if we're not keeping that hydrogen flow at a fairly consistent basis, then the engine's going to get even more confused about the gases that are going into the system. Fortunately, if I can explain a few things about our system and some of the other systems that are out there that are similar, there are different types of systems. Some of the systems will use metallic plates, and the plates are submerged in the water, and some of them use coils of wire. The reason
Some have 2 rods.
Yeah,
right?
That's another common that you see. But the reason why we chose to do this system, and you can find many other companies that are using a very similar canister where the negative is on the outside and the positive is on the inside, and this is just a point to help people understand, is that the flow of gas stays much more consistent as the water goes down because all of the fluid is in contact with a positive flow of current at all times. Now, in some systems, it's obvious that if you just have a plate or a couple of rods in the system, that as it goes down, there's a lot of conflict between the current flow. But in a system like this, we're able to maximize that amount. And that's one of the great benefits of the canister type systems. And if you can find many companies that sell that type of system online. So I recommend definitely doing some research into the product. And here's another thing too, and I'm sure Rick, you know this is true. Brent knows this. Riker's just coming up in this, so he's learning about these things. But if you want to save gas with your car using these systems, I think it's important to understand Yes, this technology has been around for a long time, but it has not been in wide use. It